Learning why and how to be in control is important if you want to have a successful career doing home improvement sales. Being good at selling home improvements requires you to stay in control. This is because to sell effectively, you have to be able to follow some type of structured sales presentation and make sure you cover everything. In a good sales presentation, nothing you should do is unnecessary or fluff. Having structure makes it streamlined so you can give the information as quickly as possible without leaving anything out. You can't do this if you're not in control. Now, if you like these type of videos, please subscribe, and for more free training, check out my blog listed in the description below. If you don't stay in control, you won't be able to follow your system, and it tends to ramble all over the place and not be as effective. If the customer is controlling the presentation and you try to cover everything, you'll be out of order, and what would normally take you 1.5 hours can take you 2 hours. Now, if you don't have a specific system or game plan and just go in telling them what you want and making it up as you go along, then you probably don't need to be in control, but you also won't be selling a lot as well. Signs that you're not in control are that you skip things that you shouldn't, speed up more than you would like because you feel rushed, let the customer dictate the order of what you tell them, such as giving them the price within 10 minutes of getting there, or anything where you're breaking sequence. Another sign you've lost control is that they don't respect you or are rude to you. The classic example of this is that they treat you like a cheap salesperson. They're watching TV, or both people don't give you their full attention to what you're saying. I think one of the worst ones I ever heard is a salesperson told me that the kids were upstairs throwing hot dog pieces at him the whole time, and the parents did nothing to stop it and were laughing with the kids. Ouch. And he didn't make the sale either. Shocker. The key was not that the kids did it, but that the salesperson didn't stop it. In the worst case, if you can't get control, you need to shut it down. If they continue to be rude and not let you explain anything, I explain politely that if they keep acting that way, that I'll have to leave. Now keep in mind, you still lost because you didn't make the sale, but at least you won't compromise your self-respect and personal integrity. The worst thing is when you do give in and let them totally walk all over you. You still won't make the sale, but when you leave, you'll feel horrible because you'll feel used and abused. If you do have to shut it down, don't forget you won the battle but lost the war. You still have to take responsibility and figure out what you could do the next time so you could get better rapport and control so you wouldn't have to leave. The thing to keep in mind is that you don't have to take control. You're in control when you first walk through the door. For you to lose control, the customers have to take it from you. And that happens when you let them. So what causes that? One could be your initial demeanor when you get there. Do you start by saying, "Well, what did you guys want to know today?" Translation, "Here's control, go ahead and take it." Or do you start by saying, "If you don't mind, can we use your kitchen table so I can show you what we do?" Get rapport. "Now great, if you don't mind, I just have a few questions to ask you on what you need information and pricing on today so I can do this faster. Is that okay?" You steer the conversation. They will start to steer if you don't steer them because it feels like nothing is happening and it's awkward. You lose or give control if you don't have influence. Translation, charisma or personal power, which gives you authority. Customers don't listen to what you have to say because they don't believe in you or respect you. When I started selling, I looked very young and I had to work twice as hard to study my craft, so my personal credibility outweighed my looks. Or you don't seem to know what you're doing, so they're trying to make this as painless as possible and get you out as soon as possible. What will help this is that when you're prepared to know exactly what you're going to say and the sequence is locked in, which means you don't have to think about what you're doing, but how you're doing it. Also go into the home with the attitude that you don't care if they buy or not, but are just there to give them an education. That's the true leverage you have, which keeps your control. That's why a lot of times people who come from a long retail background have problems doing this type of job because they're not used to being in control. They're trained that the customer is always right, that even if they're rude and abusive, that you're to turn the other cheek and put up with it. In retail, the customer has control. In home improvement sales, we have control. Now, when you lose control, it doesn't happen all at once. It generally happens bit by bit. You ask them to come with you while you measure the furnace and they say, "Nah, you go ahead and do it by yourself." Or they start to be rude and you don't call them out politely. When is it easier to stop a child from taking candy from a dish? The first time or after they've done it 10 times already? So if you're losing control over the course of your visit, by the end, when you need to have the most control, you have the least control. So the instant you start to lose control, i.e., they're rude by making phone calls while you're talking to them, deal with it immediately before it gets away from you. I know I'm a guest in your home and I appreciate you listening to what we have to offer, but is there any way you could make those calls later? Because otherwise I'm afraid this will take too long and I don't want to waste any of your time. The flip side of this is that it is in their best interest for you to be in control. If someone is spending thousands of dollars, should they sort of know what's going on, or should they know exactly what's going on? So when you give them all of the facts, they can make an educated decision, which is in their best interest. When they take control and don't let you give them all of the facts, you're hurting them. When done right, all you're doing is educating the customers to what they're getting for their money so they can see if it's worth it to them. Now, if you don't know what you're doing and are rambling and talking about things that have no interest or concern to them, they won't let you have the control for long. So what are some things you can do to keep the control you have when you enter their home? The most important skill that will help you keep in control is your ability to get rapport with anyone. That's because rapport equals control. People you have great rapport with, like your friends, you can get them to loan you money, and people you have no rapport with won't give you the time of day. You can keep control by talking about the benefits of the features you're explaining so that what you're saying has interest to the customer and keeps them wanting to be involved. You can keep control by you doing a good needs analysis so you're correctly solving the problem and not annoying the customer. For example, you find out that they want to update their kitchen to sell the house, and then you don't spend 10 minutes talking about the lifetime warranty. Or they tell you they're going to spend the rest of their lives where they live, and then you spend 10 minutes talking about how the new windows will give them a great resale value. There's a famous sales story about an HVAC salesman who's sitting in front of an 80-year-old widow, and after he goes through an explanation of BTUs, load calcs, and how a variable speed furnace motor works, he asks her if she has any questions. She replies with, "Well, just one question. Will this furnace keep me warm in the wintertime?" You can keep control by tailoring the pace of your presentation to match the customer. Are they a driver to the point customer, and then you're taking your sweet time with a bunch of small talk? Are they a sociable person, and you're talking a mile a minute about just the facts with no bonding at all? A key point to remember is that sometimes you have to give control to get control. The point that I'm giving them control means I'm still in control. For example, sometimes you go in the home and the customer will start taking control in a wild way. You know, let me tell you what I want. I want to do this and I want to do this. And I don't want to go through a sales presentation. And can I do this? Instead of fighting them immediately, I may give them control to let them go on and get it out of their system. Then when they take a breath, I say, "Wow, you have a lot of good ideas and know what you want. So this should make my job a lot easier. Now, if you don't mind, along with what you've just told me, can I ask you some other questions so I can do this even faster and don't waste your time telling you about things you don't want to hear?" Then I get back to the next step, which in most presentations after the warm-up should be your needs analysis, and I'm back into the sequence of what I normally do. You have to have your system locked in, so if you do give them control by breaking sequence for a bit, that you know where you are to bring them back to where you should be. If you don't, then sometimes it goes too far and you're lost. For example, you give them control when they ask you a question about your company at the very beginning in the warm-up, and maybe not to be rude, you may answer it, but if it starts to go further and they ask you more questions, you need to be able to take control back and say, "That's another good question, but if you don't mind, let me finish up finding out what your needs are, and then I'll tell you all about our company, okay?" Otherwise, you end up giving your company's story out of sequence. So if you learn to keep control on your sales call, then you control your income as well. If this topic helps you, don't forget more free training listed in the description below, and check the video listed above on how to sell to different personalities or the playlist on closing. Happy selling!